And welcome back to the Financially Simple Experience. So friends, I'm going to dive into a topic that I've often addressed, usually in one-on-one conversations with business clients. It's a very emotional conversation for a business owner to walk through. It's one that often tugs at our heartstring. And the reality is I get it. I probably have dealt with this question more than anything else in the world of business. When I'm sitting in a meeting with a client, as we're getting to know each other and I'm doing some assessments, I often ask, where is this business going to end up? Are you going to sell it? What's your desires? The overwhelming majority of business owners will say, I really want my kids to take it. Or I'm going to give it to my kids. The vast majority. I don't have very many people say, man, I'm going to grow this thing and sell it to a third-party buyer, and I'm going to ride it into the sunset on my yacht or my horse or my fast car. I don't have that happen very often. In fact, most of the time, they'll say, I really want my kids to come in and take this thing over. And I'll ask the question, do your kids want it? Seems logical to me to ask that question. And they'll say, well, I don't know. They're only 5 years old, or they're in college, or yeah, we've been talking about it, but they have their own life at this point. When we're looking at family business, we have to really take a hard look at, does it make sense for us to try to target our family member as our successor? You've got this business, which is highly illiquid. How are you going to provide for your own needs if you don't sell it? How are you going to provide for your own needs if your children get involved? Are you going to be the bank to your kids? As you would probably assume, I'm in many business associations. And in these business associations, years ago, I began hearing this quote or this rule called the 3-generation rule. And I would hear some talking heads say, well, most businesses don't last to the 3rd generation. Most businesses don't last to the 3rd generation. It became this crazy statistic. So I began doing some research on it years ago saying, well, is that true? I came up with the S.E. Johnson College of Business at Cornell University, and they came with a study that said about 40% of family-owned businesses survive to the next generation. So 40% of businesses can transition. Meanwhile, only about 13% are passed down to the 3rd generation, and then from the 4th generation on, it's only about 3%. They don't seem that bleak of a number, right? I mean, you got a 13% transition moving from one generation to the next. But is that rule accurate? Harvard Business Review reports that the 3-generation rule is based on a single study from 1980. When I saw this, I'd heard this in so many environments. In fact, whenever you read business books now, you're going to see the 3-generation rule come about in some way. But it's based on a single study in 1980. Now, what is amazing to this is a few things. Number one, the sample size of the study. The researchers solely looked at the manufacturing segment in only one state, the state of Illinois. They didn't look at the service industry in Florida. They didn't look at the retail industry in California. They didn't care about that. They only looked at the manufacturing industry. So here we are taking the manufacturing industry statistic in only one state, the state of Illinois, and we're comparing it and now putting a thesis out there across the entire ecosystem. The other thing they did is they only looked at a certain predetermined time frame. Basically, they said, hey, from this point back 3 generations, how many businesses are still in existence in the state of Illinois and in manufacturing? So they took a lot of generalizations among themselves. The reality is that business transactions, the sale of a business, is largely private information. Why? Because the vast majority of businesses are private. I can remember whenever the CARES Act was being put together during the COVID pandemic, specifically Marco Rubio got on the stage and he said, look, there are 31 million small business owners that need our help. 31 million small business owners. That's a lot of small business owners out there. Now, not every one of them employ employees, but nonetheless, that's still a lot. So if you're trying to get data from this group of small business owners, it's not the same as publicly traded companies. Another study found that 25,000 publicly traded companies between 1950 and 2009 lasted an average of 15 years. Think about that. Publicly traded companies, not even mom and pops, only lasted an average of 15 years. Not even a single generation. Now, I mentioned earlier the S.C. Johnson Business College. They actually just found a study that said that the family-owned businesses last for about 24 years. Whenever I read the two studies, I said, well, why is that? Well, to me, it's pretty obvious. Family businesses require on the income, and so they put their blood, sweat, and tears. You're probably doing this. I was doing this. We're putting our blood, sweat, and tears into the business. Whereas if it's an institution, then we can sell it, move it, M&A, various things. So family businesses last an average of 24 years. The reality is that's not even moving us toward the 3-generation study. It actually states that only 1/3 make it through the end of the second generation, or 60 years. Now, that's a huge difference. Don't get me wrong. 60 years, 1/3 of businesses make it 60 years. That is huge. But whenever I start thinking about it, I have to ask the question, what makes businesses non-existent? Why do companies quit? Professor William O'Hare did a study on this, and he wrote a book called The Centuries of Success. What I found amazing in this particular book was the longevity of many businesses out there. There are a few in Japan that are in their 40th and 46th generation. They were founded literally in the year 578. Okay? Here we are in 2023. These things were founded many, many, many years ago. Over 1,000 years. There's a company in Italy that was founded over 1,000 years ago. Here in the United States, the Bockham Funeral Home, which is in Strasburg, Pennsylvania, was founded in 1769. They're in their 8th generation. Now, I want to know, what have they done to help them succeed? Well, first of all, they realized that family business is not without risk of when you're dealing with a transfer. If I'm going to transfer my business to my children, there's a lot of risk involved. We deal with time and financial security. Just dealing with picking the right child to take over the business is huge. Whenever I did a study years ago, I don't remember when I did this, I was doing a case study working with a group of professionals, and we took a live case and kind of morphed it. But this live case, it had 24 different children involved through marriages and divorces in the business. Which one do you pick to take over the business? Which handful of kids do you pick? And then if you give the business to these handful of kids, what about the other kids? If you don't make them whole or provide them with some sort of a monetary benefit, they're going to end up hating you. I mean, you're going to be dead and gone. Your kids are not going to like you anymore. So there's a lot of stress whenever you're dealing with family business. You got time and security. You've also, as you're picking the successor, you got to figure out, does the future of the business line with the future of the successor? A lot of questions here on vetting, friends. A lot of blind spots that come into play. Then you've got to deal with tax planning. Yeah, you're going to give the business to your kids. What about gift tax? What about the estate tax? What are the negative tax implications for the family member? Then you got values-based goals. When you transfer a business to a family member's, it is emotional. I've just gone through this. Transferring a business, selling a business is emotional. And it is stressful. Think about family Thanksgiving dinners. I mean, they can already be stressful in and of themselves. Like everybody's on pins and needles not to try to tick off old Uncle Eddie over there. Well, now we're going to have somebody sitting at the family kitchen table during Thanksgiving as we're eating our collard greens and tomatoes. And old cousin Eddie over there is ticked off because you gave the business to somebody else or you didn't select them. I mean, I've seen families separate over this mess. Whenever you stop and look at this, the reality is that transferring to our children can be rewarding. Working alongside your child can be rewarding. I personally dealt with this in my own company. I had our children were employed in the company, and many times they would come in and they did remedial things like shred documents, clean. They did some, my daughter and my son did social media things. My youngest son would help stock the supply room, make lists, go on grocery shopping or supply runs with another one of the employees. I mean, they were in the business, and working alongside watching them was fun. I have a business owner right now that I've been consulting for just over a decade, and the business is ready to sell. It is ready. This thing is the Mac Daddy business. Whoever wants to buy this thing is going to have a great business. They're not willing to sell it right now because their kids are involved and they're using the business to train their children work ethics. They're using the business as they should, as business owners, as we should. They're using the business to teach the value systems that mom and dad have. But friends, that's fun when they're young. But when we start looking out into the future and we're saying, okay, I've got this business here and it's an asset, and more than likely 70, 80% of my net worth is the business, we got to have some very, very, very deep conversations around transferring a business to a child. You could put yourself in a financial devastation. You could make your child subservient to you, where you ruin the parent-child relationship. If not handled right, bringing a child alongside is dangerous. So I'll leave you with a few quick tips. You say, Justin, I hear you, but I want to do this. Great. Start your child as soon as possible in the business, working from the bottom up. Let them get to know every aspect of the business. You've already been doing that for years. Man, that's exciting. Here's a virtual fist bump pop right there for you. So I'm excited for you. Now let's teach them not only the makings of the business, let's teach them the rationale and the strategy of the business. Have them sit in on meetings with your attorney, your accountant, your banker. Have them sit in on your board meetings. Let them go to a sales presentation with one of your executives. The reality is, if you're going to transfer the business to a child or children, the employees, your customers, your vendors, your banker, they all have to have confidence that this child is endowed, that they know what they're doing, that they have gone through this apprenticeship program, and they have the respect of not only the parent, but everybody else. And it wasn't given to them, it was earned. Whenever I take a hard look at it, would I want to sell my business to my children? I'm not sure. I've been through this too many times with friends, too many times with business owners. Been doing this almost 30 years now. That hit me the other day. I was like, wow, I've been running this game of business for about 30 years, and I'm not sure I want to put that burden on my children. Now, maybe you're in a different shoot, and if you are, let me know. Let me know. I'd love to hear your story. Reach out to me. You can connect with us at Financially Simple. You can connect with me on social media. Just look for Justin Goodbread. I've got all different social media handles. Until next time, friends, as we continue to look at blind spots, let's continue to make our lives at least financially simple. Hey, y'all make it a great day.